The cannabis conundrum, from legalizing pot as a pain reliever to allowing dispensaries to sell it. Have we gone too far or not far enough? These are the questions many are asking as marijuana moves towards mainstream. We'll kick off with a look at the grassroots effort to make pot more accessible.
I'm the voice for my wife, who's been battling cancer now for a few years, and in the process has lost her voice due to oral cancer. And our message is simply that there's a place for medical cannabis.
Then on to an inside look at a legal grow operation and how medical marijuana is closely managed.
A lot of that data recovery is so that we can learn and know how to grow the highest quality product.
And we'll lighten it up a bit by taking a ride in a driverless bus. Kids in Southwest Florida do it all the time. We'll have those stories along with the latest in our Positively Healthy Medical series. I'm Amy Osher, and this is Behind the Headlines. I'm Amy Osher. Thanks for joining us. It's been many years in the making, but marijuana is having a moment. Voters in Florida approved it for medical use, and many hope it will someday be available for recreation as well. The path to legalizing pot has always been a grassroots effort. After serving 20 years in the Navy, Jeffrey DeMond found himself battling severe pain.
I had had several ankle reconstructions and back issues, and I've had my shoulder replaced and my biceps torn and my right wrist's been repaired.
Like many others in similar situations, Jeffrey resorted to living on prescription drugs.
The way that the VA treated me was with opioids and massive amounts of opioids, 120 milligrams of morphine a day, 80 milligrams of Oxycontin for over 5 years.
At that point, he had enough, and Jeffrey joined a growing army of everyday people fighting for the right to use medical marijuana.
I was able to vote on it, voted yes, and I was able to get my medical card. And since that point, I've even had a larger turning point.
The grassroots effort is now focused on convincing local governments to find room for med marijuana. Many use zoning ordinances to prohibit dispensaries within their jurisdiction.
If you're a patient and you need medication, you shouldn't have to drive an hour and 45 minutes in traffic to North Fort Myers.
The issue of accessibility is driving new people to community activism.
I'm the voice for my wife, who's been battling cancer now for a few years, and in the process has lost her voice due to oral cancer. And our message is simply that there's a place for medical cannabis.
Trent Dunn spoke in front of Collier County Commissioners, where dispensaries are currently banned. He hopes his personal story will make an impact. He's putting his faith in democracy.
I think the power of the people is the foundation for the entire system. And I think it still works in 2018 when you gather yourselves, when you organize yourselves, when you act locally and you act digitally, and you bring your message forward.
Florida voters resoundingly supported medical marijuana in 2016, approving an amendment legalizing it for a variety of diseases and conditions. Getting on the ballot was an uphill battle, but victory is not complete. Collier commissioners are poised to revisit the issue.
Their next vote's October 23rd, which I'll be speaking at that county commissioners board. And hopefully I'll be able to convey my point of view.
Judging by the strength of numbers, there's power in perseverance.
I don't think I'm being a maverick. I think this is the law.
Another burning topic is the impact pot is having on our politics. Frank Luck with the News Press explored how marijuana might swing voters. I love the way your story was prefaced as the politics of marijuana tipping the scales. Are we seeing that here in Florida?
Well, I mean, Florida famously is a state where races tend to be very tight, but when it comes to particularly medical marijuana, as we saw a couple of years ago, it was not even close. It was 71.3% approval. So I think the public opinion has shifted quite a bit on this issue, and we're seeing that now start to translate into political campaigns, and especially in the midterms now, we've got a lot of tight races, and you've got some politicians that are really grabbing onto this to take advantage, they hope, of voter enthusiasm for it.
Do you see it going on particular party lines for or against?
Broadly speaking, yes. Right now, the Democrats are kind of seizing this issue, although that's not to say there aren't some Republicans who...
Seizing it in terms of supportive of it?
Supportive of it. Andrew Gillum famously now is calling for full legalization of adult use marijuana for recreational purposes. So that's far and beyond where Mr. DeSantis is. He's in favor, of course, of medical as it stands now in Florida, but he's supportive of more restrictions and certainly not in favor of it being legalized recreationally.
The other hotly contested race is the U.S. Senate. Have
Yeah.
Rick Scott or Bill Nelson come out publicly on their standpoint?
A little bit. Senator Nelson has been opposed to marijuana legalization for a long time, but has recently come out in favor of medical marijuana, particularly for veterans. He's co-sponsored some legislation that would allow the VA to prescribe it. Governor Scott, I mean, we know how he's acted in the state of Florida with regards to this, and he's opposed, for instance, letting people smoke it as for medicinal purposes. He's not said beyond that what he might do in the Senate. There is a decriminalization bill in the U.S. Senate right now. He has not said what he would do with that, and well, for that matter, neither has Senator Nelson.
Now, do you think it's something that they're banking on that will really bring voters to the poll on their side?
You know, that's a good question. I think it may more be an acknowledgement that public opinion on this issue has changed a little bit. So there, as public opinion is more favorable of this issue, you know, the politicians tend to follow that. Whether or not that will actually translate into a margin of victory, you know, we'll have to wait until next month to see.
Is it surprising that people are still opposed to the medicinal aspects in terms of local community governments not allowing dispensaries and things within their zoning, considering the voters resoundingly passed that they wanted it?
Well, you know, it's an interesting question. It's a new thing, I think, and so local governments are kind of grappling with it as a new thing. Is it surprising? I guess not, but you know, I mean, at this point, we're getting to the point where 80–90% of voters are in favor of medical marijuana. So they may be reluctant now, but I suspect in the years to come they won't be so reluctant.
Do you find that it's losing some of its taboo because now we're talking about it more? Now we already do have legislation in place that allows it to some degree. Do you find that it's losing some of that stigma?
I think so. You know, Colorado famously legalized marijuana for all adult use about a half dozen years ago, and right around that time we saw national public opinion change quite a bit in favor of legalization of marijuana, and now it stands, I think the last poll I saw was 62%, and when you break that down into age group of voters, you know, millennials really like the idea, 70+%, Gen Xers 60+%, even those a little bit older tend to favor it. I mean, really where you're seeing skepticism is the much older voters, and of course this is Florida, so we have a lot of those here still.
I was going to ask you about that because if you look along age groups and maybe more conservative voters being older voters who might be Republican in the state of Florida, do you find though that those are also people that might benefit now and changing their mind because they're older and they might have some more medical conditions now that would benefit from the use of medical marijuana?
Well, it's interesting because now you have the baby boom generation getting into that age group and increasingly using medical marijuana and probably some recreational in there as well. And John Morgan, the Orlando attorney who bankrolled the Amendment 2 effort a couple of years ago.
And supposedly considered running for governor.
Right, and is in favor of full legalization now. You know, he famously noted that, you know, the baby boomers are really tipping the scales on this issue. They're using it, and there's a whole bunch of them.
When you look at the time that we're in right now, because it is a fairly new thing, there's a lot of stuff still being worked out in terms of whether you can use the bud or not use the bud and smoke it or not smoke it and all that type of stuff. Do you think this is a critical juncture for marijuana in the state of Florida at this particular election?
Potentially, yes, because if Mr. Gillum becomes governor, I think all the debate about smoking it or non-smoking it, that goes away. I've talked to some advocates of full legalization, and they say really the key of getting rid of the stigma of marijuana is allowing it to be smoked and that becoming a little more familiar for people. So I think it is a kind of a big issue.
And lastly, do you see this trickling down in state races or something more on the ground level rather than these very big races?
Not so much, but I suspect if it translates into votes on the higher level, it's going to translate to votes everywhere else, and people are going to jump on board.
Well, as we look forward to November, very interesting insights that you brought kind of behind the scenes into the election. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Marijuana grow operations are fundamental to meeting the demands of the sick and dying who qualify for its use, but producing crops for medicinal use is quite an ordeal. As you'll see, this ain't your grandma's pot farm.
We're studying everything that we do from the point of the seed all the way through the system till we get it into the patient's hands. A lot of that data recovery is so that we can learn and know how to grow the highest quality product and then make it more efficient.
You ever been into a cannabis cultivation facility?
I have not. This is the first time.
Welcome to Certero.
So this is our starter facility, and as the demand grows throughout the state of Florida, then we'll add on to this facility to make sure we can supply what patients need throughout Florida. This particular facility we're at today, we're anticipating it'll help 2,000 to 4,000 patients a month for the patients that may have epilepsy, seizures, cancer. And so as a license in the state of Florida, there's several hurdles that you have to pass through. The first one is authorization to cultivate. So the facility we're at today is one of the first cultivation facilities. So we were proud to be one of the first to actually cultivate legal cannabis in the state of Florida. The next step that we have to go through is get approval to extract the oils from the plant. Once we get that approved, then we have to get approval to actually distribute the product to the patients of Florida.
Still ahead, this yellow school bus is missing one thing, one person actually. That story is around the corner after the break.
Life here is amazing, and so is the joint care. At the Total Joint Center at Physicians Regional Healthcare System, we've changed the experience of joint replacement for good. With our comprehensive joint care program, most hip and knee replacement patients return home in just 2 days, because we know you want to get on with your active life. Pain-free living starts at Physicians Regional Medical Center, Collier Boulevard, and Physicians Regional Medical Center, Pine Ridge.
My name is Steve Unser, and cabinetry is my specialty. I have been creating custom-designed cabinetry for 20 years in Southwest Florida, and now I am celebrating the grand opening of our new Naples showroom. Steve Unser Cabinetry will help you design your kitchen, bath, or home office with stunning results, offering the best quality of cabinets with a wide variety of design options and pricing to fit any budget. If your kitchen isn't becoming to you, you should be coming to us. Now, 2 locations to serve you.
Is your auto insurance keeping pace with your life? Ask for a AAA Triple Check Insurance Review to see if your current policy is still a good fit. An agent will assess changes in your life, like new vehicles or drivers. Make sure you've got the right coverage and all the discounts you deserve. They'll also see how a AAA membership can round out your protection on the road. Plus, provide roadside assistance, discounts, free services, and vacation extras. Ask for your AAA Triple Check today.
Comfortable and gentle are words we don't usually associate with the treatment of hemorrhoids, but that's how doctors describe the banding method. Here's the latest in this week's Positively Healthy. If you've ever suffered as the result of hemorrhoids, you may take comfort in the fact that you're not alone. More than 75% of people ages 45 and older have been in the same position.
Hemorrhoids really are veins in the rectal area which are designed to take blood flow back to the heart. So to some degree everybody has hemorrhoids to a certain extent, but in some patients they're more prominent than others and more bothersome than in others.
Hemorrhoids can cause pain, bleeding, and itching. Another problem is that speaking about them puts many people in an uncomfortable spot. But board-certified gastroenterologist Michael Cohen says newer treatments are taking away the sting.
There's a number of different techniques for hemorrhoid banding. The type that I've been using for about the last 15 years or so is really an outstanding technique. It's done in the office without any type of sedation, without any need for any preparation. So patients really walk in and we do the procedure right in the office, and it takes all of about 2 minutes to do, really.
It's a virtually painless, no-cutting procedure.
The patient lies on their side, the instrument is introduced through the rectal opening, and a small, very tiny rubber band is applied, and we actually apply it just past the hemorrhoid. And the way it works is that rubber band that's been applied causes a small sore to occur, and as that sore heals, it lays down scar tissue, and the scar tissue prevents blood flow to the hemorrhoid, causing the hemorrhoid to shrivel up and shrink down.
Cutting off blood flow neutralizes the hemorrhoid. This particular banding method is performed in a series of 3 treatments done 2 weeks apart.
It's really applicable to most people with hemorrhoids. There's very few exclusions. And as I explained to patients, it's about 90 to 95% effective.
Making it a simple approach to minimize a common problem. Babcock Ranch boasts it's a city of the future, and part of that includes driverless vehicles. Well, the future is now, apparently. A self-driving electric shuttle is taking kids to school 1 day a week for starters. The news press went along for the ride.
This right here is an all-electric self-driving shuttle, an autonomous vehicle. It uses redundant systems, GPS, and LiDAR. So my way of explaining what LiDAR is how bats use echolocation. This uses light. And then the GPS, there's 12 satellites that keep this vehicle localized. Partnered up with Babcock Ranch, the first environmentally friendly, sustainable city in America. And we partnered up with them to bring them this mobility solution. So not only will we have shuttles like this, we'll probably in the future have 2-person pods. Like, it'll really look like Futurama here, you know? The thing I like about this project, the technology we're working with Easy Mile and TransDev, is that we're ushering people into a new era, and where we don't have to ever worry about a drunk driver again. The thing is, you know, as you're growing old gracefully as well, this is another great mobility solution, because the first thing they want to do is take your license away. And then with this, basically you can still live your life and have like a new lease. So for the school service, yes, there will be a safety attendant. And but in the long run, when these vehicles are, let's say, not the school bus version, then what we'll do is basically we'll monitor everything with this intercom. This is right here, this SOS button is an intercom system. And then what it does is basically, if you need to speak to me, you just press this button, and I could see you from the camera that's inside that speaker, and we could talk back and forth. We just have a school service on Fridays. Pickup is at 7:30, and then in the afternoon, pickup is at 2:45. Trying to decrease the dependency on personal vehicles. So yes, we'll have more of these available as the population grows.
Our next stop is the newsroom for a look at what's happening on the beat.
Thanks, Amy. Hi, I'm Shelby Reynolds. I'm the food writer at the Naples Daily News. This week I worked on a story about Southwest Florida's local celebrity chefs. There are at least 7 in the area, including Bob Grissinger of Bennett's Fresh Roast in Fort Myers. He appeared in 2013 in an episode of Food Network's Donut Showdown. The list also includes Chef Asif Syed of Naples 21 Spices. He prepared a chicken tandoori dish that beat celebrity chef Bobby Flay on the Food Network episode of Beat Bobby Flay. You can find my story about local celebrity chefs and the exact recipe of chicken tandoori online at naplesnews.com.
Hi, my name is Brittany Carloni, and I'm a reporter at The Banner and the Naples Daily News. This week, I wrote about a group of Estero residents and a land conservation nonprofit that are trying to purchase 10 acres of property in Estero. The Friends of River Oaks Preserve and the Conservation Foundation of the Gulf Coast want to buy the property for use as a natural preserve. Read more about their fundraising and the project in Saturday's edition of The Banner and online at naplesnews.com.
Hi everyone, I'm Ashley Collins, features reporter here at the Naples Daily News. This past week I got a chance to dive into all the different movies, documentaries, and shorts being shown at the Naples International Film Festival starting October 25th at Artist Naples. It is the 10th year, so it's a pretty big milestone for Artist Naples, which hosts the event. And as a special for it, there'll be an appearance by Steve Martin and Martin Short. For a full list of all the different movies that are going to be shown at the festival, visit naplesnews.com.
I'm Harriet Heighthouse, arts and entertainment writer for the Naples Daily News and naplesnews.com. Look, you don't want to be playing smooth jazz at your Halloween party. So the feature staff of the Naples Daily News went out and found the spookiest, funniest, most dramatic songs they could find for your Halloween entertainment. It's in yesterday's Daily News or online at naplesnews.com.
Next up, Brent Batten and his weekly commentary. Brent?
Thanks, Amy. A question I often hear asked these days is, what's trending? I'm told it means, what are people looking at on the internet and social media? What is of enough interest to folks for them to stop what they're doing and watch a video or read an article? So I decided to do a little more research. I typed what's trending into a search engine and got back about 212 million hits. Based on the first few dozen of those hits, here's what's trending. Fauci admitted he's never met Drake. Not sure who Fauci is. I'm pretty sure Drake is a musician. I don't know why it's important whether they ever met or not. The Buccaneers signed Ali Marpet. Apparently he's an offensive guard. When the hot news about your team is they've signed an offensive guard, you're in for a long season. Devo made the list for induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. At some point, doesn't it stop being a Hall of Fame and start being a Hall of Vaguely Familiar? Someone stole a celebrity YouTuber's $18,000 Lego collection. You can become a celebrity YouTuber with $18,000 worth of Legos? My kid could be a star 3 times over. Of course, none of them are assembled. They're all in clumps in a toy box. If someone wants to steal them, they're more than welcome to them. There's a poll about flying cars and whether they'll be common by 2020. I've been waiting for the flying car since the first episode of The Jetsons, and my hopes have been dashed at every turn. So I'm voting no. There were a few trending items about Brett Kavanaugh, Nikki Haley, and other names in the news, but mostly what's trending on the internet are things I have no clue about. And here's one more trend. I remain perfectly okay with that. I'm Brent Batten. Be sure to read my column on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays in the Naples Daily News. Check me out on Facebook, and as always, thanks for watching.
When we come back, perseverance pays off. Lee County retirees are cashing in their years of hard work. That's ahead on Behind the Headlines.
The area's only 30 minutes or less ER service pledge means you'll find less waiting for the care you need. And because we're full service hospitals, a lot more care if you need it. Less waiting, faster care. Only at Physicians Regional Healthcare System.
Jean LeBouf has been an anonymous food critic in Lee County for nearly 40 years. And now JLB is expanding into Collier County.
Look for a new review every week. You'll never know where I'll turn up.
Hiring the right moving company is important. Best Moving and Storage is a family-owned and operated business serving Southwest Florida for over 22 years. From our free in-home estimate until the last piece of furniture is in your new place or stored in our climate-controlled warehouse, we treat you like family. Best Moving and Storage is fully licensed and insured, with all of our employees being certified drivers and packers. When it comes to protecting your treasured belongings, choose a company that's experienced and trustworthy. Call Best Moving and Storage today at 239-592-6565.
Coming Saturday, October 27th at Cambier Park in downtown Naples, it's the Paradise Coast Wine and Food Experience. Celebrate the best of the Naples culinary scene with chef personalities, celebrated wine experts, and award-winning special guests such as Chef Scott Conant, restaurateur, author, and judge of Food Network's Chopped. Explore the area's trends and traditions, spirits and craft beer, and savory samplings of this grand tasting. Tickets are available at wineandfood.naplesnews.com.
A group of retirees from Shell Point recently reached a $1 million milestone in sales, and it only took about a half-century to get there. Love this story from the news press. For 46 years, Shell Point's stamp ministry has collected, processed, and repackaged used postage stamps for sale to collectors. It's painstaking work, all done by hand. The canceled stamps are bundled and sold in 25-pound boxes. Collectors buy them looking for rare finds or just to fill out their personal stamp albums. The Stamp Club uses the proceeds to pay for a religious outreach. When it started in the early 1970s, the money funded a Christian radio station serving Central and South America. Now it's expanded to print materials for Sunday schools. Fueled by this monumental milestone, they have a million reasons to keep going. You can read more about these senior stamp collectors by logging on to news-press.com. Finally, we touched on growing operations this week. Well, this farm in California is producing bumper crops of vegetables, and it's manned mostly by robots. Here's a look from the USA Today.
At Ironox, we built the first production robotic farm. And what that means is we're using robotics and AI to grow better produce and make it more accessible to everybody. We have a 1,000-pound mobile robot, lovingly named Angus, that navigates our farm autonomously, picks up one of these hydroponic grow modules, and then brings them over to this robotic arm. And then the robotic arm uses things like computer vision, and it can actually see in 3D. So it looks at the module, knows where the plants are, and it does whatever the task is, like harvesting or transplanting.
They're just starting to germinate and they're...
We pack the lettuce and herbs in as closely as we can, but as they get bigger, we actually scale them out and space them apart, and that's called transplanting. Other farms do that, but it's a tedious, repetitive task today, whereas our robots are doing it every day, all day. We absolutely think this approach is good for the planet. Not only are we using 90% less water, but we're also using significantly less in terms of like CO2 emissions for travel.
That's the end of the line for us on this week's show. Thank you for watching. You can always catch up on past editions by logging on to naplesnews.com. On the homepage, scroll down to Quick Links and select Behind the Headlines. I'm Amy Osher. See you back here next week. A lot of people, I think, express the sentiment that they're afraid this is going to open up recreational use.
So, I don't really, I think that the medical marijuana field is always going to be a need, whether they open it up for recreational use or not, because people are going to need to know about marijuana. You can't just, I was lucky enough to be able to do it on my own. I would hate for somebody just to try it without, going through the dispensary and learning about the medication.